Hello guys and welcome back. So in the last part we were able to complete our interface design, that is the login and the register, and we also talked about going over to the full back end. So one thing I forgot to mention is that we are going to be using Redux. So Redux is something that helps us with the state management, and this is what you're going to be performing first before we move ahead. So what I have to do right now is to create a method called onLogin. So I'm just going to create a method here. So this method, whenever we click on this method, we want to move over to the product screen, assuming that the user has successfully logged in. And I'm going to link that to the button. So whenever we click on this button, we just call the onLogin. And inside here, we are going to be, the first thing we have to do is to make use of the use navigation. So this use navigation is going to be coming from React Navigation 5. So don't use the one that comes from React Navigation Hooks. I'm going to bring in navigate. Then over here, because we want to navigate to another stack, we can just mention the component that we want to navigate to, and automatically it will navigate us to that component. So let's just hit save and allow this refresh. So I'm just going to open my Metro bundler and make this faster. And hopefully whenever we click on this login button, it should now bring us to that product route in the product navigator. So that's how we can actually switch navigator fast. So the next thing we have to do is to come over to app/index. So coming down here, you have to come over to this index file. Let's just clear what is at the top. So I'm just going to create a JXS called app Redux. So even if you have not used Redux before, this is perfectly for you as well. So inside that, we have to bring in the provider. So the provider is going to be coming from React Redux. So I'm just going to import from React Redux. So we've not yet installed that, but let's just quickly terminate our application and install those things. So inside here, I'm going to add Redux. So let me just include this very perfectly. Redux donk for assign function middleware, let's say making an assign function or a promise request. Then we have to now lastly install React Redux, and that's how we can use Redux with React Native. So let's hit enter. And when that is done, we can start back our application using the Yon Android flag. And when that is done, we can minimize our Metro bundler and hit on this login to get back to that product list screen. So for the provider, it's going to accept, first let's bring it in. The provider is going to accept the store. So the store is going to be accepting a store as well. So let's just quickly import store from, we're going to be importing that from the source/store. So we are going to create that immediately. So I'm just kind of worried because we didn't get any recommendation for this provider, but let's just move ahead. If there is no progress, then we can restore the components that we just tried to install. But let's check our package. So we have Redux donk, and React Redux. Okay, hopefully that this should work perfectly. So going back into this source, we have to create a folder called store. And inside that, we can create a file called index.txt. So let me just show you guys what you can do over here. So instead of using this way, it is also best if you use this way. So you don't have an error with this. So inside that, we can wrap our app component with this store. And instead of returning this app, we can just return the app Redux. And let's save. And of course, we should have an error because we don't have anything connected to the store yet. So going over to the index.ts, we have to import from Redux. So guys, let me check, okay, that is stored perfectly. We also have to import thunk from Redux thunk. So the way I like to construct my middleware, in case you have multiple middlewares, you can just use middleware. You can put thunk. So if you have another middleware, you can just put a comma and then you put it down. Then we are going to define an initial state. Then we are going to define the store. But first we have to bring in the create store. So for us to create a store right away, we have to now use the create store, which is going to accept something called the root reducer. So let's go ahead and create that root reducer. I'm going to create two folders called actions, and the second one inside that store directory called reducer. Then inside this reducer, I'm going to create a file called index.ts. So what I have to come over to this store, what I have to do right away is to complete this with the initial state. So let me just complete this perfectly. Initial state, and we have to bring in apply middleware. So this apply middleware is going to be coming from Redux as well. So apply middleware, and it's going to accept that our middleware. Right now, let's go ahead and import reducer roots. I'm just going to import root reducer from, and then we can put down the reducer directory, and everything from here is going to be making index from it's going to be making use of the index file. So I just have to quickly save this, and now coming over to our root reducer, inside this folder we are going to create the product reducer. We're also going to create error reducer, and lastly we have to create the auth reducer. So these reducers are exactly what you're going to be making use of. So what you have to do now is to import something called combine reducers from Redux, and it's going to export default combine reducer. Then inside here we can now specify particular reducer for each of these reducer files. So if you can recall, we have the error, which is for the error reducer, but let me just keep this away for now. Let's focus on the two main ones that we are going to be doing, because for the error we are going to just talk about it when we start making an Axios request or a promise request to our backend. Let's just put down the product reducer, which is going to be coming from the product reducer. So coming into that product reducer, what you just simply have to do is you have to create an initial state. Then inside here, you're going to export default, which is going to accept a state, which is going to be from our initial state. I think I'm making a mistake. Export default function. So let me just complete this circle. Then here we have an initial state, and it's going to accept some couple of things called payload and the type. So let me just map this to any for now. So why are we getting this? I think I misspelled something. Yeah, so I misspelled it. So inside this root product reducer, we are going to bring down the switch. Now the switch is going to be working with the type, so we can say case of any type, then we can perform some operation. But for now we have the default, which is just going to return our initial state. So let's save that, come over to the auth as well. Let's just grab everything here and paste that in the auth reducer. Yeah, in the auth reducer. So guys, I figured out that I put this in the wrong place, but we can just quickly scroll a little bit down or put that, now cut this out and save this file and come into this index and paste that file. So here we can bring in the product reducer, and for the error auth reducer is also ready. For the error reducer, we can as well put this down since we are still going to come back to edit it. So let's just grab everything from product reducer and put it here and save so that we can avoid those type errors. And inside this index.ts file in the root reducer, we can now bring down the auth, which is the auth reducer. So we can even bring down the error reducer, of course. So we are not going to have any issue with that. So that will help us to quickly fix that. So coming back to our store, we can just go ahead and save this file. And of course, we should have a full running application right away. So why you see that error is because we forgot to import React. And also we have to export default store over here. And coming down in this index.js file, we have to, at the top level, we have to import React from React. So that will solve it because it will now give us the ability to use a GXS component like this inside this index.js file. So hopefully that should resolve every other issue that we are facing. So I think we are not supposed to be getting any error again. So let's allow this to finish. Yeah, so as you can see, our app is perfectly working fine and we don't have any error with that. So we've successfully connected our reducer. So the next thing we have to do right away is to create the methods that we are going to be using to make a request to our API. So that will lead us to creating our API. But one thing I also forgot to do was that we didn't touch the details screen for the products. So we didn't actually design this, which we forgot to do. But don't worry, during the course of the series, we are going to do that. Then right away, let's go ahead and create some methods that we are going to be using for our API and also set up our API. So I'm just going to come over to actions. Inside is our store. I'm going to create a file called auth actions. So this one is for us to handle our authentications, and I'm going to create a file called product actions. So this one is for us to handle our product actions as well. So first thing first is to handle all the actions for our authentication. So before we move ahead, we are going to create a file called types.ts. So guys, hopefully you can see this font size in a better way, or let me just add one or two things to it. Maybe make it 24. I think this will be better. So this is going to accept the types of actions you want to dispatch and then use these actions to handle our reducer calls. So these are examples of the types of actions that we are going to be making use of. So let me just quickly go through that so that you can be able to get them. But I'm going to put the link in the description for you to grab these actions. The first one is user loading to actually notify us that the app opens. So when the app opens, you're going to see a little bit of spinner. So while this spinner is loading, it's actually making a request to confirm whether the token stored on this phone is actually valid so that the user can be able to proceed to this product screen. Then whenever the user loads, it's going to terminate this user loading and we can come over to this screen. Then we have authentication error in the case that the user does not exist, or the case that the token has expired automatically is going to dispatch this auth error. And for this login success is whenever we successfully make a perfect login request, and it's going to return some credentials, which we are going to talk about soon. Then we have the login fail. It's more like this auth error. So whenever it fails, it's going to perform same operation with the auth error. Logout success is going to clear the tokens and clear the user from our mobile device memory. Then it's going to bring us to that login screen to re-login or register. Likewise, register loading is going to notify us whenever the user clicks on the register button and make a request to the back end. It's going to show us some spinner to actually notify us that the user has made a request. And whenever the user registers successfully, it's going to perform the same operation with login success. Same thing with register fail and auth error. Log loading is Right now, I can't recall, but as we proceed, we can talk about that. So I guess you should have familiarity with sending products, loading products, send a single product, loaded all the products. This one is loading products and loaded. I think there's a duplicate, but don't worry, we're going to fix that. Then delete product is for us to delete a single product. And likewise, we have add to cart and we have the checkout. Then we have the error types, declare errors, and also we have these types just to for type checking. That is for TypeScript, so it doesn't have any effect. You can use any, or you can define your types. And we have the action prop types. I think this the same thing. I can just go ahead and clear one. So let me just specify that void over here. So this void means in case we don't pass any payload when we dispatch something. Sometimes you don't actually need to pass a payload. Then this URL, the way you can get this URL is very simple. Just type down ipconfig and it's going to give you the ISP internet address for your home. Then you can use that to actually set up you can use it to make use of your Node.js route or API. Then set it up like this and it's going to be used in the application. So let's go ahead and make use of this type so that you can really understand what I mean by that. If we come over to this thing, the auth reducer, instead of us to use any here, we can just say action props and import that. And at the top, you can see it's coming from the action props and just keep it there. So you can see we have the payload and the type. So that's exactly what you're seeing over here. So guys, I was just thinking like, let's come over to our login. So instead of having this login on, as in the operation that when we click on this login, it's going to take us to the product route. We can now go ahead and remove this because we are going to be using the Redux to handle all those things later. So what I have to do right now is to create two initial state values, which is going to be a string. The first one we have is a string of name and the set name. And I'm going to create the second one. It's going to be the email. I think we have, okay, for the login, we have the email and the password, sorry. So this is email, sales email. And this one is the password, which is the set password. It's going to use state string. For the use state, you just have to come, I think from React, we can bring in the use state, and we also have to bring in the use effect. So we're going to make use of this very soon. So that should get that error away for us. So the way we can use that is to come a little bit down. Where we have this form text input, we can say on change text, which is going to return those texts, but we can just give it something like email, then can set email to the email. So I don't know why I'm making all these small mistakes. Then we have unchained text as well. It's going to return a callback. We can set password of password, and we can bring that password from here. So that's how we can actually set those things. So let me just hit this down and let's save. Right away here, whenever we click on login, we can now dispatch. We are going to create a method called login. So I forgot we didn't actually do that. So let's go over to our auth actions. So we have to export a const called login, which is going to accept, I think we have the email and the password. So over here, we can just specify the types of those email. We have the type of string and password, a type of string. So that solves it. And we can just come at the top. Let me just name these actions. You can import actions from one folder again. We can go over to the store actions, auth, I think, yeah, auth actions. Then here we have the login, and then we can bring that login and dispatch it whenever we click on that on login. So I can just say dispatch. So the dispatch comes from use dispatch, and here we can just assign it directly, not bring in dispatch. So let me just import that use dispatch. So I think I didn't import it. Yes. So I'm just going to clear that, and I'm going to import from React Redux. You can bring in the use dispatch. So the React Redux, okay, I guess the reason why we are having this error is because we didn't actually install the types. So the Redux tongue, and React Redux, we have to quickly install the types. So we have that installed, and let's go ahead and run the application once more. So that perfectly solves it, and we can now come back to dispatch from our use dispatch. We can dispatch login with this email and password. So let's go ahead and come over to this action, and let's just console.log the email and the password. So let me just come here and I'll bring this out. So let's say sam@gmail.com and put the password and hit the login button. So we should get a response. So why we are having this issue is because we didn't make use of our middleware, which is very simple for us to use. We just have to bring in the async. Then we can put down the dispatch with all dispatch. Yeah, guys, I just remember something that we shouldn't have deleted all dispatch props. So let's just bring that back. So let me just specify a void here. So we can just bring down all dispatch prop. Then we can even get the states if we wish to, and just assign that to any. So let's go ahead and save. So let's save that and refresh our application. So when we hit on the login, you can see we get that things that we put down here. So that's exactly what we are getting in our actions. Coming back to this login, we have to specify this one to be secure text entry, so that it's going to hide any password that we put there. So you can see this little dot. That's how we can actually use Redux to connect everything. And this will now lead us to creating our API. So for our API, we're going to be using Node.js, MongoDB, and a lot of things that we are going to be installing together. And let's go ahead and do that. So guys, as you continue watching, make sure you hit the like button and the subscribe button. And on the next part, we are going to go over to Node.js.